Right, I think we'll make a start. So welcome everyone to our webinar, Best Publisher UX Award 2021, where you'll meet this year's finalists. So before we make a start, I just want to run through some housekeeping stuff with you. So I'm Jane Charlton. I'm the marketing manager for OpenAthens, and I'm the person who set up this award. So a few housekeeping things. We are recording this session. It's live now. So after the event, you'll also be able to get a copy of the recording. If you have any questions, if you could please post them in the Q&A box, and we'll pick them up after each of the speakers has presented. And if you have any more general queries to do with technical setup or other issues, if you could post those please in the general chat box. So I just want to say a little bit about the award itself and why we set it up. So the award was set up last year to improve user experience content and to drive UX innovations forward in the information industry. Our main aim and purpose of this was to make access to knowledge as easy as possible for end users. And the award judges this year are Todd Competer from Nyso, Russell Palmer from Galileo Virtual Library in the state of Georgia, USA, Andy Priestner, trainer and consultant in UX research and design, and Efka Smith from STM Publishing. So moving on, just to say a little bit about this year's finalists. So Monique Silva, who is the UX lead for health data research, will be talking about their innovations. Health data research aims to unite the UK's health data to enable discoveries that improve people's lives. We'll also be hearing from Mike Newman and Guy Spiropoulos, who's a product manager at nkoda. nkoda is the world's largest digital sheet music library, all on subscription. But to kick off now, we're returning to Damien Stewart, Head of UX at Emerald Publishing, who will give an update on Emerald Insight since they won the award in 2020. So over to you, Damien.
Thanks a lot, Jane. I'll just get my slide and start sharing. Okay, so I'm Damien Stewart. I'm the head of UX at Emerald Publishing. My presentation today, I'm just going to start with a brief recap of our journey and the approach we took to launching our platform. Then I'll move on to just talking about the developments since we won the award last year. So just to recap, so in 2017, as a company, we decided that we needed a new platform. Then in 2018, we launched our private and public betas. Now, during this time, we had a lot of end user engagement. We created a library advisory network, which had 164 members. And during this time, we liaised with them and kept them up to date with all the progress on the platform. And we basically obtained feedback from them on a regular basis to ensure we were heading in the right direction. Then we launched the platform in 2019. But the launch of the platform was only the beginning for us. We release new features to the Insight platform every 2 weeks, and every feature that goes up onto the platform is validated with end users on an ongoing basis. Ultimately, what we were aiming to do was create a continuous feedback loop. We wanted to create our initial ideas, get them in front of users as quickly possible in a testing cycle, obtain the feedback, and then improve. And basically, this is just a continuous cycle that we go through with all new features that go up onto the platform. A key part of the process is our UX team and the process they follow. So the UX team follow a create, test, refine model. And our And basically, the way the structure, we follow an agile development process, and we have a tribe that's split into 3 squads, and we have a UX designer that sits inside each squad. So at the beginning of each sprint, when we're developing a new feature, we start with sketching out of ideas. Now, before COVID, obviously this was done in a physical space where we get around whiteboards and with pens and paper and so on. But since COVID, we've been using more online tools to enable us to do that, predominantly Miro. We bring development and digital product managers and SMEs together to start to sketch out the initial ideas. Then the UX designer then takes that information away and creates the initial wireframe and prototype. And then from there, we then move into our testing cycle. So we create a script, a testing script. And again, obviously, because of COVID, we're no longer able to do face-to-face testing. So we've been doing online testing, which I'll go into a little bit more detail about shortly. Once the test has been run, we then take the findings and then communicate those back to the wider team. And then UX, dev, the PO, we then kind of plan out how we're going to implement the changes based on the feedback that we've received. And then we move on into the next sprint. Oops, sorry about that. So as I mentioned before, face-to-face testing was something that we did on a regular basis. We've got very strong working relationships with librarians in our local area, a number of different universities we used to go into on a regular basis. Obviously, that isn't possible at the moment, but we have still kept up the connections with our librarians, kind of contacting them on a regular basis with things that we're planning on doing and sharing the kind of progress that we're making. But predominantly the testing we're doing is through Try My UI. This is an online kind of testing environment that enables us to upload our prototypes, and it gives quite a quick turnaround time, usually around the 2-hour mark. So we get quite quick kind of responsive feedback, and it enables us to really stay very agile. We also have a feedback loop on the website as well. So on just from Insight, and we obtain feedback on a daily basis. We then take that feedback, we kind of gather that feedback together on a monthly basis and write a report, and then that's shared back to the team, and then we pull out the most kind of the largest amount of feedback, and then we kind of take that forward and look about implementing any changes that are required. So now I'd just like to move on to talk about some of the developments that we've put in place since winning the award. So I'm sure you can imagine, with us releasing to the platform every 2 weeks, we have had a vast amount of changes over the last year. But today I'd just like to focus on kind of 5 kind of key areas, really. So the first of these is around accessibility and the fact that we want to make our content accessible to all. So accessibility on the platform has been something that has been a key focus for us for a number of years now, and particularly getting WCAG 2.1 AA. And we've taken quite an in-depth approach to this. So our UX and development teams have worked extremely closely, going through the guidelines in a systematic way to ensure the platform is meeting the requirements. And I'm pleased to say that just before Christmas, we reached the standard, and the website is there now, basically, with regard to the WCAG standard. Now, we're always conscious that ultimately we can't mark our own work. So we are going to be going out and getting external validation of the standard, and we're in the process of sorting that out at the moment, and we'll be doing that shortly. Now, one of the other areas that we're very conscious of is that because we release the platform so frequently, is making sure that we maintain the standard. So we've put a number of checks in place through our UX team and also the development team to ensure that everything we release to the platform will remain at the standard. So this is now in place, and yeah, we're looking forward to getting the external validation, and we'll be taking it from there. So access to our content is also something, a key area that we've been looking at as well. And we are in the process of implementing seamless access on the platform. The service is based on the RA21 recommended practices, and ultimately it will make our services much more streamlined and make the access experience much better for our end users. And this approach will be going live shortly. Browsing our content is another area where we were obtaining feedback from our users that we've looked to improve. So we've introduced a new section on the site entitled Browse Our Content. We've tried to keep the section very clean and very crisp look and feel in line with the rest of the site. And from this section, the user can access an area called Books and Journals. They've also got the ability to obtain a greater level of filtering as well at this point. So in the top area in this panel 2, the user is able to filter by journals or book title. Down the right-hand side, they've got the ability to refine by title and refine by subject. And also, we were quite keen to bring the books and the journals forward a little bit. So we've introduced the book and journal covers as well into the design of the page, which we feel gives a much stronger kind of visual kind of representation. This has all been obviously validated by end users. We've done quite a lot of testing on this section and we've been getting very positive feedback. The next area that I'd like to talk about is community engagement. So as I mentioned before, when we first were designing the Insight platform, we created the Library Advisory Network. So building on that, we have now created a community network platform entitled Engage. It's currently made up of 400 librarians. And basically, 400 librarians currently, and we will be adding researchers and authors shortly. The platform enables us to share our progress ultimately. So anything we're working on, we can post to the environment. We have specific rooms for specific topics, and we can post the progress we're making and obtain feedback that way. We can also ask questions as well. So if we're working on something and we think, oh, actually, we'd like to obtain some insight into this, we can post a question and then we can obtain feedback from the wider community. And we engage with the community on a daily basis. And again, as I mentioned before about the feedback report, we also report the findings from this room in that report also. So all the feedback comes together in one place on a monthly basis that we review and then take forward as appropriate. So experimentation and optimization is another key area for us moving forward. So we've been looking at a number of different tools for experimentation on the platform, and we've decided at this moment in time to go with Google Optimize. It provides us with the ability to undertake A/B testing and also provides us with much more of an instant kind of feedback from our users. We're also looking to implement Hotjar shortly as well. Again, a great tool for instant feedback at the point of need and point of interaction. So our UX journey continues. We've got a lot of exciting things on our roadmaps going forward, and we're really looking forward to how we build the platform out going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damien. And I think John, our commercial director, has a question. John, I think you can take your mute off and just ask the question directly, if that's okay.
No, I will do. Damien, thanks very much. You talked there a lot about the user experience, and you touched on Hotjar. Do you have analytics on site at the moment?
Yes.
And if you do, how does that? How do you marry that sort of user experience with the analytics? Do you combine those, or does one take precedent?
So we combine them. So we have a mixed panel on the platform currently. So we meet on a regular basis every fortnight and review the mixed panel data, and we can see if there's any kind of spikes in activity or any areas where we need to focus on. So it's very much a combination of end user kind of engagement and the data, and the two kind of come together really to give us that round picture of how the platform's performing and where we can make changes and alterations accordingly.
That's great. And then are you happy sharing the name of the tool you use to do the A/B testing?
So the A/B testing is Google Optimize is what we're using currently. Yeah, that's what we've got enabled on the platform.
Thank you very much, Damien.
No problem.
Are there any further questions from the webinar audience? No? Okay then. I'd now like to thank you very much, Damien. That was lovely to hear that the UX work that you're doing is ongoing, and exciting to hear about all your plans for accessibility and all the sort of data and A/B testing and all of those improvements. So thank you very much for returning and giving us an update. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much for the invite. Thank you.
I'd now like to hand over to Monique Silva, who's the UX lead for health data research. So over to you, Monique.
Thank you, Jane. Just sharing my screen here. Thank you guys for the opportunity as well. Great to be here. So I am UX lead for the Health Data Research Innovation Gateway. Let me explain a little bit about what we do. So if you imagine a researcher who's working with COVID-19, for instance, and they're trying to find out if there's a relationship between ethnicity and the risk of getting COVID. 10 years ago, they would have had maybe to have a lab, some survey respondents and participants. It would have been a big, expensive job. Nowadays, because of big data, they can do this from the safety of their lockdown living room. They could just do this on their own computer. They get the data from, say, the NHS, they run their own analysis, and they can come up with some amazing insights, all of with a lot fewer resources than they otherwise would, which is amazing. It's an amazing thing that technology enables, but it's also not quite as simple as that yet, because of course, when we talk about data in this case, we're talking about patient data, and that's sensitive. And the hospitals and universities, they're not just going to give out that data to anyone who asks. They have some very strict measures in place to make sure that the people who do access the data are safe researchers. They have safe settings, their computers can't be hacked and things like that. And the other difficulty is, this leads to the difficulty of bureaucracy. It's very hard for researchers. They have to go through these very long application processes. It takes months. Sometimes they just can't navigate the process because they're too complicated. And the other problem is that they sometimes don't even know if the data exists, because hospitals and universities, the people who are the custodians of this data, they're very busy. They're doing other stuff that's very important, and they're not really, out there optimizing, making sure that this stuff is discoverable for researchers. So it's technically possible, but currently quite cumbersome for researchers and for the data custodians as well. So the point of the Innovation Gateway is to provide a portal where researchers can do this entire process and more simply. So they can find the data they need, they can request access, they can get the information about any accreditation, any courses they need to take, they can find tools that work with the data sets that they're requesting access to, and it just overall adding user experience to the process of requesting access to health data. It's of course very, very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. There's the researchers, there's the data custodians, there's the patients. We need to protect their privacy. So we started off this entire project by doing what we called a target customer experience, which is what you're looking at here. So it's a 6-week-long user research process. The goal of the process is to come out with something similar to what you're looking at, which is a customer journey from the point of view of the user. In our case, the main character is the researcher, of course. It's told as a linear narrative, so it's a story. And it's supposed to be very simple, cartoon-like simplicity, so that anyone can follow. It's not just a tool for the designers, it's also good for developers to understand the context of the user. It's good for stakeholders to communicate their vision. It includes on and offline, so everything, it's not just the interface, not just the what's happening on the screen, it's everything that these people are doing in the process of completing their tasks. And it's a target state, so it's not a picture of the current journey, it's a picture of what we want to happen in about 2 years' time. So it's a realistic picture, it's not blue skies, crazy stuff. This could actually happen, that's the goal for it. And more importantly, it's the entire life cycle, end to end, from just awareness, figuring out that the stuff even exists, to getting everything that they need and they are happy and fulfilled, and on to the next thing. So this is a summary of it. It's a shared vision of the future customer experience and the organization that delivers it. So we also make sure to represent, in this case, Health Data Research UK, who have to then manage this website. For instance, do they have to do customer service and all of those things? We start the process with some discovery. We do interviews, we do pain mapping, we talk to anybody who is a potential user, anybody who is impacted by these user journeys. We make sure we understand their pain points. We then get everybody together. Pre-COVID, this would be in a room, a 3-day workshop kind of thing where we sketch on pieces of paper. But nowadays, as Damien said, we also use Miro. I used to call him Miro, so interesting to see that there's a new pronunciation there. We essentially have lots of workshops where we are designing, or we're sketching this journey together with the users and the stakeholders. So we want a plurality of perspectives in the room to make sure that we get to the final ideal journey. We then consolidate all of this. So of course, we don't come out of it with a pretty picture that's ready to go. There's a lot of inconsistencies, there's gaps to be filled. There's often too much information, and we need to cut it down and make sure that we show just the right stuff. And at the end, we have a pretty picture, which I'm not going to take you through it because it's very long, but I'm going to give you an overview of more or less what's involved. We have some main characters. I'd say in this case, Henry, who's the researcher, is our main character. But we wanted to make sure that we also represented the patient whose data this belongs to, the data custodian, and the who is providing the data, and the portal admin. There's a lot of support that happens from us as well, the people running the website. We wanted to make sure we highlighted the touch points where that interaction was really important. And we tell it as a little story. So if you were to read the main blobs here in the middle, this is the main storyline. Henry is finding out about the gateway. He's looking, he's searching for the data he needs. He's finding, setting up his sort of workspace. He's doing the application process. That's the application process bar. You can see there's a touch point here with the data custodian and all of the stuff that needs to happen. So it's just a big picture showing all of the moving parts involved in it. And you can see it's quite big and complicated, and we're not building everything all at once. So what we do is then we choose a chunk of this. We say, okay, we're going to do the application process, and then we design this end to end. But it provides us with this really good context for everything. We get a good understanding of the user and their needs. So that's our macro, so to speak, macro UX. We understand the foundational aspects of the user, what their pains, what their contexts are, their goals. And that intensive 6-week chunk formed the foundation for everything that we did afterwards. But of course, we also had to do some UX afterwards. We had to do the micro, the detailed functionality. So for each feature, we also did mini ideation workshops, and of course, regular usability testing. We want to make sure that everything that we're designing is intuitive and easy to use, and all of our original intentions are translated into the features that come afterwards. So for those ideation workshops, we also have a mixed team. Sometimes we get users join, not for everything. We don't want to overload everybody with workshops. These are just 1 hour sessions. Usually it's attended by stakeholders, developers, the designers. So that already kind of provides that plurality of perspective. But we do get users in when it's something big or something that we think it's a little bit complex and we'd like a bit of help. We do essentially 2 exercises, the 5 W's, which is what you're looking at here, the what, why, who, when, where. It's just to make sure that we have alignment on what the needs are. So often we come prepared with these and we're sort of validating that with the people in the call, and we're making additions, we're editing them as we go. It's really good for getting alignment and really good for limiting scope as well. This is often when we understand that the developers had a different understanding of what we were going to do than the stakeholders, for instance. So it's a good time to flesh these things out. And then we also do a journey mapping of the experience. And here we do focus a lot more on the interface. What if I click this button, do I get an error message? If I go here, do I get an email notification, and so on and so forth. Still, of course, it's not a wireframe. It's not super detailed. It has to be something that we do quickly. But we come out of this meeting with a very good alignment because we have this sort of visual output. We are confirming that my understanding is your understanding. And we come out of the meeting with a very, very good idea of where the designs are going to go next. And then, of course, we also do best of the internet, which is, I'd say, competitor research, but actually, we're not looking at our competitors in our industry, we're looking at the best of the internet. So if we're doing a complex search, we look at what's complex searches all around. We look at Airbnb, we look at Uber, the real top of their class, because then that prevents us from being anchored down to what's done in the industry. So we come up with some new novel things. They're not actually novel, they're just novel for our industry, but that's it really keeps us sharp when it comes to interface and making sure that everything is working. And then we do usability testing. So of course, after this, we do designs, we do prototyping. Eventually, we do usability testing. We don't do them per sprint. So this is, we just have regular usability testing slots. So essentially, by the time we get to usability testing, we have about 3 or 4 things that we're testing all at once. So we essentially observe them, the users, perform tasks without any help from us. So we say, please create a new project, and we watch them do it, and we see if they stumble. And if they do, we know there's something to fix. We have a really cool template for keeping track of our observations. So that really gives us an idea. Here you can tell just visually what are the features that people are really excited about, what are the ones that perhaps need a little bit of work, and that prevents us from spending too much time in analysis post the test. So we record the sessions, and then we watch them, and as we watch, we take the notes in this particular template style. And then last but not least, we engage with the community. We have an open community forum where users can request new features. And we keep track of these new features and we prioritize them. It's been a really useful tool because we have a lot of new feature requests, and we had a lot of difficulty trying to make sure that we were prioritizing requests from users, for instance, rather than requests that maybe are from internal stakeholders and are less evidence-based. And of course, this allows us to talk back. So we receive a request, but we can comment and say, can you give us a bit more explanation? Or other people can come in and say, yes, I want this too. This looks like a great feature. Please, let's do this one. It's been a very good tool for us. And that is it. I hope I have not gone over time.
No, that's lovely. Thank you, Monique. And we have a question. So the first question is, to what extent does the user research bring real surprises versus confirmation of the results from the thorough process?
When you say user research, do you mean, I'd say there's fewer surprises in usability testing, because by that point we've already engaged the users quite a lot. So we come with a big understanding of what their contexts are, what their needs are. So we're really more expecting surprises in terms of the user interface. Although there's still some surprises there. Sometimes they tell us offhand comments in the usability testing that really inform what we do later on. But the first user testing, the first user research that we do, the workshops with the target customer experience and so on, that is absolutely full of surprises. It never goes where we thought it would go. We definitely start with a list of features and things that we think people are going to need, but the exact way in which they imagine them is very different from the way that we imagine them. So we probably start off with the same idea of what the problems are, but we go to very different directions in terms of the solution, and that's why it's really crucial to have them in the room, because I think otherwise we would have dreamt up the best solutions, which might not always be the case.
Thank you. And the questions are rolling in. So the second question is, what do you find most challenging about losing face-to-face engagement around UX? And I think you've mentioned a couple of things about this already. And how do you address those challenges in the online meeting environment?
I think certain things were easier than others. Usability testing, I quite prefer actually having them on online. I think it's more flexible for people to join. They can do it at a shorter notice, and I think some aspects of that, but that's not a conversation. That's really I talk, they talk. So I think that's the easy case. I think that was right. Workshops have been a real challenge. We used to operate a lot on having walls and post-its and being able to move around in a physical space. And we knew that was going to be a challenge actually when COVID started. So even before this project within our company, we got together with the rest of the design team and we had a workshop on how to have remote workshops. And we had some really good stuff come out of that. So we had some guidelines on having shorter meetings rather than, we can't do 3-hour meetings. We can barely do 2-hour meetings. People really lose their patience. A lot more prep. We come to workshops really prepared, so the tasks are very well defined. Breaks. So if we need to have a long meeting, we need to have breaks in between them. And just we used to have a lot more where people, the participants themselves would write on post-its and they would be more engaged in that way. And we switched to the moderator has a lot more power to write down what people are saying. So we allowed a lot more time for that. Whereas before, 6 people writing post-its is a lot quicker than 1 person writing post-its for 6 people. But I think that preparation has really allowed us to, rather than go in expecting the same experience, we knew it would be a different experience and we were trying to get the most out of it. But it's definitely not the same. I'm really looking forward to going back to a real workshop.
I think we're all looking forward to that. Another question, is there ever any tension between going out to users and thinking better yourselves?
Oh yes, there definitely is, I think. I mean, if we're all honest, there always is, isn't there? We often have in our particular field, in the thing that we're trying to do, people are very used to doing things a certain way, and of course, oftentimes they're like big institutions like the NHS, and they're like not as quick to wanting to adopt new processes and so on. So we often get feedback from them saying we want things a certain way, and we wonder to ourselves, is that because that is the better way, or is that because they're just used to doing it a certain way, and if they give it a shot, then if they saw it in place, for instance. So we try, whenever we have those conflicts, we try doing very detailed prototypes and putting it in front of them and then testing it, observing them rather than sort of listening to what they're telling us they want. And we have taken some risks, but we don't just ignore their feedback, of course. We know that we have to then prove our case, but we put a bit more effort into it. And sometimes we do give up. Sometimes we go, nope, seems like they really want to. I think we had a feature like this, which was like downloading a PDF, where we were like, you don't need to download, you can just go online. But they really, really wanted to, and we couldn't convince them. So we originally put put it up there. I think you gotta try, show it rather than asking for their opinion. I think it would be what I'd say we do in those situations.
Thank you. A couple more questions, and I think we'll need to move on then to nkoda's presentation. So the next question is, what tool do you use for your community forum?
Discourse. It's open source community tech thingy. I cannot explain it, but you can go on Discourse. I think it's free actually. If you have devs who can install it for you, it's very good. I think it's used by quite a lot of people. Monzo use them. It's very popular. I don't think it's super slick dev wise in the back end of it. So devs in our side don't love it, but certainly getting it up and running in like a couple of days was really amazing. It took very, very little tech setup. So I like it for that reason. It's quite customizable as well.
Thank you. And regarding the discussion forum you mentioned, does that formally interact with your user journey workshops? Are you recruiting from the forum? Say, do you connect with someone who requests a feature to test your revisions and prototypes?
Good question. We haven't yet. I think we have. We've had to encourage people to go to the workshop, to the community forum for now. It's not at the point yet where people are just coming to us, although that would be amazing. But we certainly keep an eye out for the people who do. We have a sort of spreadsheet to keep track of the people who engage with the most. It's not a direct relationship, but we're certainly aware of that. But it tends to come the other way. We have a group, a design and improvement group, who we sort of ask to join, and we send them regularly to the designs and things that are happening, and then they are the ones who tend to comment the most. So tends to be the other way around for now, but hopefully in the future, yes, that would be amazing. Oh, I think you're on mute, Jane.
Sorry about that. I had just a very quick, sneaky question. I just wanted to ask, is this approach that you're taking in terms of the UX and user journey, is it just one specific part of health data research that's focusing on that, or has the approach been rolled out across the organization? How embedded is the approach within health data research?
I think it was new for this project. So my company is actually PA Consulting, so we are a tech partner for HDR UK, but our teams are very embedded. We're really, we have Jira tickets, we assign tasks, we're pretty much one team. Since we've done this project, we have now it's being adopted to there's an international project that's doing similar thing. They are adopting some of the practices. But I don't think it's a company-wide operation yet. I think it's done on a project-by-project basis.
Thank you, Monique. And thank you very much for that presentation. And we had lots of really interesting questions and answers. So now I'd like to hand over to Mike and Guy from nkoda.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thanks, Monique. That was really fascinating. Thank you all for joining. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you. So my name's Mike, and I head up the institutional partnership side of nkoda. And I just wanted to quickly take an opportunity to give a brief overview of what nkoda is and how it is we serve the musicians we do, before I hand over to Guy, who will speak about the UX specifics in a little more detail. So nkoda as a business exists to build products and services to help musicians and educators achieve their goals. And the core of what we offer is a subscription service for sheet music. And this comes in the form of an app, which is available across all platforms, which is to say iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows 10, and even some recent forays into Chrome OS. And through this, you can access the fully licensed catalogs of 130 publishers from across the world, ranging from massive multinational publishers, large conglomerates, establishment publishers that have existed for 300 years, all the way down to what we call boutique publishers, kind of one-person shows, slightly more esoteric content. And what the app is available in 11 languages. We have users in over 100 countries. And what we offer is access to a library that's completely unique in multiple ways. There are multiple areas of the catalog which have not been accessible until now. And of course, on the scale, digitally, that has not been accessible until now. And particularly, what Guy's going to explore is the area of the app which we call the score viewer, which is an area within which people will engage with the content for the longest time and most intensely. So this is the point at which they're viewing the sheet music, and they're most likely either practicing it, performing it, analyzing it, studying it in all kinds of ways. And we have to be receptive to every kind of use in turn, and the features that we build, and of course the feedback we receive and ask for needs to be adapted accordingly, which Guy will talk about in more detail. So yes, I think at this point I'll hand over to Guy, our product manager, who will take us further.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everyone. I am Guy Spiropoulos. I am the product manager here in nkoda. And yeah, I'd like to talk to you today about our UX philosophy as a company and some of the changes we've introduced the last year or so in the user experience. So our mission is very clear in nkoda. We do exist to support and inspire every musician out there. It's a very bold mission, and we help them to reach and attain their goals. We are obsessed with helping them. And we do so by designing products and services to encourage them throughout their musical journey. But how do we learn from our users, and what are some of the methodologies and approaches we've been using to conduct user research? I'll run you through these, and we'll focus on a couple of these later on. First of all, we've run an extensive product survey with our most active engaged users, and helped us identify key pain points, remove them, and spin them into improvements. We'll talk more about this later. We also run an active community on Slack where we engage directly with our end users, more than 200 of them, allowing them to feel part of our company, and also facilitating an open environment for discussion and collecting product feedback directly. We do one-on-one interviews. Obviously, traditionally we've done these on location in our offices, and we've ported these activities since lockdown mode online. It's very helpful for us because that's where we really observe our users in action with our product. This is something I'll drill in more in detail later, but it is the efforts with our product focus group. It's an active ongoing group where we look to collect early feedback for any sort of new features, improvements, even for new ideas for the product. And finally, our in-house musicologists, which give us great domain expertise on music, and they're able to empathize directly with our end users. I'd like to speak more about our product survey, what that entailed. This is an effort that was initiated back in January of 2020, where we sent out to a selective pool of active subscribers and incentivized the invitation to join our product and complete our product survey. We asked them about how satisfied they are with our application, what's the best and worst thing with nkoda, what would make them use more often our product, which music they'd like to see more of, and what's the top feature they'd like to create or see in our application. We got 130 subscribers completing the survey, and we managed to segment the feedback based on various cohorts such as age, gender, instrument, preferred musical genres, and skill set. And by doing that, we were clearly able to identify common pain points across all these segments, such as the inability of our users to remain logged in our application and taking a long time to access their profile items. But in parallel, we identified common desires and underserved needs across all these segments in the survey, and particularly returning users wanting to jump back into their own material, to what they were working on before, and the need for better management of their profile elements, playlists, library of music, annotations, and so forth. We followed up with about 30 of them in kind of in-depth user interviews to drill in deeper in their feedback and ideate possible improvements and solutions around these issues. You can see here our old profile section, which we're calling you. And the result of all this was a series of improvements, which we introduced to the profile section. We renamed into My Library. We allowed for automatic redirection of returning users to this area. We allowed for easier access to recently played material, for clearer and quicker navigation to subsections of the profile, improved management of these sections by adding filtering and search functionalities, and generally overall UI improvements of this area in order to address the consistency of the feature across various platforms and devices that we cater for. Some key engagement metrics we defined to measure the success of this rollout includes the number of views of the profile section, number of recently played items opened through this section, number of playlists created, uploaded material, number of scores added, and number of playlists added to the user library, and number of shares made through our profile section. We've been measuring an upward trend on these metrics, but we're also very monitoring the impact of these metrics on global KPIs, which define the user engagement overall with our product. Now I'd like to share a bit more information on the efforts we've done with our product focus groups. This is something we initiated last October. We have 30 members in our group across all of our defined user personas. And basically the focus group is a practical embodiment of our mission of setting musicians at the center of our work and building our product for them. They provide feedback throughout the whole product lifecycle for us. So we'll provide product assignments to our members, and they're possibly ideating to provide feedback on early stages or testing interactive prototypes, wireframing with them for things to come in the future, and moving on to improvements and new features which are tested on pre-released versions of our product, and actually also testing existing features that are living on the live application. In particularly lately, we've focused with our focus group on performing a control experiment in order to validate improvements on our fit-to-width display mode. What you see here is our score viewer environment. It's the environment that users interact and read the music, play through the music, and this is set in this fit-to-width mode, which allows to maximize the score in the device size, but does not allow for a full page to be contained within their view. So we've added improvements such as scroll marks and automatic scroll speed for the pages as they move through it in order to facilitate the consumption in such an innovative new way of looking at music. And we asked our members to kind of run these improvements in various musical intentions and circumstances, such as trying to learn to play something new for the first time, or playing something they're familiar with that's in the muscle memory, try to follow through a score while listening to the music, or try to practice a technical, difficult part that's always been challenging for them. And we're very happy to hear the results to validate that more than 90% of our members found that these improvements to reading music in this new digital innovative way, they found that it improved their interaction with the music and allowed for a meaningful consumption of the music in all these various circumstances of learning to play, practicing, studying, and so forth. But furthermore, they also highlighted something we were not expecting, that they would like to adjust more and control more the improvements of this feature, in particular the scroll speed of the music as it moves through for them, depending really on the nature of the material they were viewing. Faster music will need faster scroll speed, and slower music will need slow scroll speed. So we're able to turn this around quickly by providing a user setting for them to control the speed by a slider, and we're in the process of currently testing this. So what are some key engagement metrics around the measurability of the success for these improvements and feature? Certainly user engagement on these kind of display modes, such as the number of layers made, the number of page turns performed in this layout mode, the number of bookmarks placed by our users, numbers of minutes spent in this page layout mode, and the number of annotations made here, while also being monitoring our global KPI metrics in Score Viewer, which are defined such as number of overall minutes spent inside Score Viewer, number of annotated scores, and so forth. Well, I think that leads me to the end. Thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you, Guy. Yes, we do have a question. So the first question is, survey data is often unreliable and inaccurate because it details what users say rather than what they actually do. How have you mitigated against this issue?
It's a good question. It does. We have to start from somewhere, and the survey does provide at least a good starting point for us. And making those commonalities, figuring out the commonalities through the survey was straightforward, but we needed to actually follow it up with user interviews in order to get to the root of the issues there. And some of them were not well expressed in the surveys, and those insights came after we actually performed those follow-up interviews with our users.
Thank you, Guy. Would anyone like to ask Guy any a question, please? Otherwise, I'm going to ask the same question that I asked Monique, and this was around your UX approach and how you may have embedded that within your organization. Is it just within the department that's looking at user journeys and access to that content, or is that approach organization-wide?
I think, yes, we are working on instilling our UX philosophy across the whole organization. We've been really working on our mission and vision and instilling that and making sure our company really backs it up and really putting the musician at the forefront. And I think all the areas of our company are now looking as our mission and our vision as the key kind of ingredient to move our product forward. So I'd say it's company-wide, whether you're looking at institutions or marketing or the catalog team, which always, those content requests, all that content based on user wants and desires. So yes, it's across the whole company.
Thank you. Our commercial director, John, would like to ask a question. So I'll just hand over to John now.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Guy, that's fascinating, the unique challenges that you've got with regards to musical notation and the way kind of the UI renders that. I'm wondering whether or not there are lessons that you've learned which could be transferable to other sort of sectors or disciplines. I'm just wondering. I know mathematical notifications or notation can be challenging for publishers.
Yes.
So
it's a good point. Yes, there's definitely commonalities across a lot of the creative fields. Or, for example, when annotating music, the use of a smart pen is very important for our musicians, and seamless annotation of the music and predicting what they want to annotate as part of the user journey. So a smart pen will kind of figure out what they're trying to write and notate, and will auto-complete it for them. So there's that stuff you see elsewhere in various design tools and kind of things like that. So we look at that. We look at a lot of page turning. Page turning is at the key of a musician, how he goes through the music. So there's a lot of new technologies facilitating page turning without the use of hands, so they can still play their instrument, like nodding their head and blinking eyes, and all these kind of things that we're definitely on the lookout. And they're kind of common approaches to different products out there from different areas.
have you seen those approaches in other fields?
So the smart pen clearly is you can see it in a lot of design tools like auto predicting and page turning as well. We see it in the musical field more than anything, because that's a key concept. But yeah, there's also some competition there, and yeah, so that is within the musical field. But smart pen annotations and predicting what the users want to annotate in the music, that's something we see across a lot of fields.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a few more questions coming up.
Sure.
So you learn from your users. Do you also learn from competitors? And if so, what have you learned from your competitors?
It's a very good question. Yes, so competitors, competitive necessity, I value it very high for our product to meet a standard, the industry standard. There is not such a instilled standard in classical music, but they are score viewer competitors for us, not so much in terms of the library and the content that we have, but in terms of the environment our users consume the music. And certainly we look at those, and there's a lot we've leveraged and try to avoid to over-engineer things that maybe our competitors have done, trying to please most users most of the time. It doesn't really work for other competitors. So we're really at the point now where we've used that knowledge and research in order to give more custom control to our users to attain and achieve their goals, rather than trying to predict what most of them want to do most of the times, which really will fail.
Thank you. Next question. Are there any UX research techniques you have not yet used that you would like to or plan to?
Very much so. We would like to see workshops a lot. For us in music, it means observing our musicians using our product in rehearsal environments. And we were at the tip of trying to get that going before lockdown, but this is something we really wanna get going, you know, because we can really observe them working one-on-one on music, but working collectively as a group in rehearsal environments or in live environment performance settings. That's really what we really want to drive more.
Thank you.
And we're missing.
With your user base, is there tension between how one type of user interacts with the system and their demands, for example, a performer, as opposed to the expectations or needs of a different type of user, for example, a composer or researcher? And how do you adapt the UX process to manage that tension if it exists?
Yeah, it does exist. And it touches upon what I said earlier, which is trying to satisfy all the users most of the time. Most of the users most of the time will fail. And a performer has very different needs and wants than a composer. And we do work on user personas, and we analyze the state of mind, the needs, the wants, and the frustrations, the pain points of each persona, and they're very clearly different. And performer will be primarily concerned about the stability of our product and making sure the seamless page turning is there for him in order to facilitate his performance. Whether a composer is more about studying the music and would like to be able to compare different material, and he's not so much playing through the music, he's analyzing, he's notating. So very much different needs, and user personas, really drilling into our user personas really helps us there to identify. And our new approach on our score viewer, rather than predicting or trying to fit all those needs in one environment, is allowing those personalization and customizable tools for them in order to attain those easily and seamlessly attain the environment that they wish to have for their own needs, but not making that difficult. So again, not over engineering it in order to get there being difficult. So it's a fine balance between giving them the control, but also making it nice and seamless for them to set up according to their different needs. Musicians are a very varied bunch. Yeah.
Yes. So someone has asked, so following a question that John had, what are some broad approaches that you might take with a unique user population so that you service their needs well?
Some common approaches. Yeah, of course, there is a big framework on commonalities across these personas. So page turning for most of these personas would be, performed in some sort of way. So, by default, we can allow most of these personas to access page such an action in the same way. So they will all feel naturally, and it will be seamless for them. But, allowing for a performer who page turning is a different kind of beast, right? Allowing the control and customizability that he wishes to go beyond most of common actions. I think that's at the heart of what we're doing now. So yes, yeah, there are common things that we do, we do offer, and we do, allow our users to kind of quickly tap into most common actions and gestures and intentions of our musicians. But then if they really want to drill in and tailor it to their needs, that's something, yeah, we're bringing in.
And final question, do you have any musicians among your developers, and does that help you with how you develop your product?
Right, the product manager is a very amateur musician, but he can still read music. I can still read music, and I can relate to what is happening. So that is important. We have some lovely musicians in our company, throughout the various areas. Mike is an excellent performer. So yes, of course, understanding our users, and as I said, our musicologists and empathizing with our musicians. You know, they're all musicians. You know, so that's a very important side of our story, of course.
Thank you,
yeah, now
Guy.
what sort of music we like, you know, each other, you know, we all have our individual tastes, but yeah, we won't get into that.
Right, we're slightly running over now, so I'd just like to say thank you to all of our presenters today. It's been absolutely fascinating, and for me personally, I found it interesting having a publisher on the sort of healthcare side and also from the arts, because both has responded to the pandemic in different ways in terms of how content has been used and developed, and how UX approaches can help with that. And I would also really like to thank Damien from Emerald Publishing for returning to us this year and providing an update on Emerald's Emerald Insights UX developments as well. So thank you all. I'm just going to quickly just move on to my slide deck, which is frozen. Yeah, just to say that the winner for the Best Publisher UX Award will be announced at our Access Lab event, which is the 16th and 17th of March. It's not in London, it's virtual. So please book a ticket and find out who the winner is. And V Rogacheva, who's now our service design lead, she's written a blog, and we also ran a webinar on UX recommendations. So we'll be sharing these slides afterwards, and I'll provide you with all the links in the follow-up email, along with the link to the recording. And also just to draw your attention to the Nyso approved recommended practices for improved access to institutionally provided information resources. So this is another part of helping to improve the user experience, specifically around login. And I'd just like to thank again everyone for attending. Thank you for your time, and thank you so much to our wonderful speakers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you
so much, Jane. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Bye.